Good morning, everybody. This is John Spiocla with GAI Insights, bringing you the Gen AI news briefing, rating your news essential, important, or optional, helping you with your careers, your organizations, and being informed on a daily basis. We have lots going on today. We have a pretty full house. We have Tim, we have Luda, we have Adam, we have Paul, and of course, Ankaj. All right, Ankaj, if you could start us off, and if the rest of you folks could also mute if you're not speaking. Thank you.
John, I'm hearing an echo from yours.
Yep, if everybody else could mute, we weren't having it before you get on, Paul.
Okay, thanks, John. So the first one that we have for today is around a GPT-4 update, which leapfrogs Claude 3.7 Sonnet non-reasoning and Gemini 2.0 Flash in Artificial Analysis Intelligence Index.
Yes, here we are on the amazing foot race among all the large models and capabilities. What do you think here, Adam?
So this is it was just a bit of a sleeper because there's been so much news about the new 4.0 March, as they're calling it, having the great new image model in it that sort of flew under the radar, that there is actually a much better version of GPT 4.0. I think the benchmarks tell one story, which is that OpenAI also knows how to do reinforcement learning, and they can continue to make incremental improvements in their product and have it achieve better results on benchmarks. Again, it's certainly not really the best at much of anything out there, but it's them moving up the leaderboards with this. My personal anecdotal experience, though, is that it is the pilot now, and I'm the co-pilot. I find that it's considering much more what I may actually want to do next to get my task done, and offering me those options. It feels like it wants to actually be agentic and to be left alone to get the full job done, and that I'm slowing it down because it has to ask for my permission. So I felt this subtle shift in terms of sort of the way it's driving towards an outcome in the conversation. But overall, it's probably optional news. It's really an incremental improvement in one on the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah, this theme of going from automation and agentic to co-pilot and really collaborator, I think we'll see a couple other places in today's news. Yeah, Luda, what do you think here? Optional, important?
Yeah, I was muted. I'm sorry. Yeah, Adam is right. It wasn't as pronounced news as it usually is, right? When they introduce this version, it's a good version. We'll talk about the benchmarks later and how non-predictive they are, but at the moment they are on the top of the leaderboard. So, but optional for me.
Adam,
Yep.
Paul, Tim?
Everyday miracle. Yep. I think it's incredible how good these tools are getting. I agree with Adam's points, but it's amazing how fast. You wonder if they have industrial espionage or something going on, or they're just predicting like, well, Claude's going to be released with an update on day X, so we have to respond by day Y, and it becomes more of a commercial one-upsmanship. But that's the way business works. So yeah, pretty interesting.
I do want to make a footnote. Adam, I know you and I had a call on Saturday, and you were sharing some of the experiences that impressed you. So when Adam's impressed by a model, that impresses me. So Adam, do you mind just taking a second or two to share those? I really thought that was notable examples you had.
Oh, I was working on a storyboard, and I was coming up with sort of the description for each of the scenes, and this was actually a conversation from months ago, but it knew that the result eventually would be to have prompts for a tool like Runway or Luma to actually text to video. And after it created the synopsis, it said, "Oh, do you want me to start working on the prompts now? Just say yes, please, and I'll continue." And it was like, "Oh, here we go. Like, who's in charge now? I'm just saying yes, please, and it's getting the work done." Like, yeah.
And Adam, to me, that's the thing of a junior employee who just does the task and doesn't think out of the box versus the next level up who employee does a task, anticipates other needs, and brings that back to the manager.
Yeah, and it's coming up with some really good suggestions that I wouldn't have thought of. Right, that's what we don't know coming into this.
Yeah, it's very interesting because it indicates that the training is incorporating very new information.
Right. And
'Cause
Tim, I think in terms of, it's obviously always been good on interpreting intent. Now it's interpreting intent for next action.
Yeah.
So optional.
Absolutely optional.
Good
All right.
discussion.
Yes. Ankash, next, please.
Okay, the next comes from Anthropic and talks about Anthropic Economic Index. So these are insights from
Sorry, Ankash.
I think we lost Ankash audio, huh?
Yeah.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Now we hear you. Yeah.
Okay, so this one comes from Anthropic and talks about the results that they have got on Anthropic's economic index through Claude 3.7 Sonnet.
All righty. Let's see. Who do we have on this one? I think we had Tim. What'd you think?
Yes, I think I like reading these things. I have a sort of an interest in economics in general. I think for the AI leader, this is optional. I could be arm twisted into important. They have access to a lot of data and a lot of interesting data, but it's just one model, and there's nothing overwhelming here, and it's really just about usage. So. And it says pretty much what you'd expect. So it's good validation of the things you'd expect. Most uses in technical activities, pretty technical activities, and adoption is increasing, but not changing that much. They're releasing these on a regular basis. So there wasn't a big change between this release and the last release. But great data. I think I applaud Anthropic for generating this data and releasing it to researchers. So the interesting things will probably come more from researchers who have access to this data potentially, and more over time as you get more longitudinal data. But nothing, I don't think that the AI leader, I might make it an important, I guess, John. I keep forgetting that, important means read it when you have time. So I might make this an important to get some sense of the overall market from a leader, but I don't think it's essential.
Yeah, I was kind of unimportant myself. When you say there wasn't much change, I don't know. It went from like the mid 20s to mid 30s in terms of use. That seems like a lot. You know what I mean? And
Yes, that's true. Yes, I just take that into account as there's a rapid pace of adoption, and at the nominal level, it's still only 30%, which reflects what Paul and all of us have been saying for a long time, which is there's still 70% of the population that isn't really involved here.
Yeah, I'm sure there's also some selection bias here in terms of who uses Anthropic, the more
Right.
technically oriented.
Right.
The two things around, technology and marketing. And the other big finding here about, if you go down, I think it's down farther, Ankash, where it shows the chart of how much are things completely automated versus you're basically in conversation. And that one there, yeah. And so the blue is kind of completely automated or directed, I think they call it. Anyway, interesting. It's really a collaboration tool that comes out again and again. What do you think here, Adam?
Yeah, I was probably in between the optional and important. I think there's enough of a case, as Tim said, for important to bring it up onto their radar. Something to take a look over. It's definitely well done, and it's pretty information rich. So I could support that.
Yeah, and you have access to all the data. So I'm going toward important. Luda, Paul, gonna take me off the important ledge here.
Luda, you're mute.
Yeah, I can support important, John. I was between optional and important because I was trying to figure out how would a AI leader use this data. Not clear. It's insightful, but not really.
Well, there are some nuggets. If you're trying to make the case, as John pointed out, usage has gone up 50% in a very short period of time. So and there are lots of sources that can do this, but this is a good one because it has some really good data behind it to say, hey, adoption is happening really fast. We weren't kidding when we said this thing was moving quickly.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yes. Okay. Yeah, I can support important.
All right.
I won't make a case for essential, but just as I was even looking again, there's just one. There is so much information here that could actually be applied tangentially to derive use cases. Like, as you read this, it's just so rich in examples of exactly how people were getting value, like the top occupations by interaction type. So, you know, the librarians used it exactly this way 60% of the time. The hardware engineers used it exactly this way. The office clerks for troubleshooting problems involving office equipment. Like, it's actually very deep in a lot of great use cases.
And you have access to the raw data. So, you know, that's huge, right? If your folks want to do
Yeah.
it, I don't know. All right. It's early
For
on in the month.
researchers, this is a gold mine.
I don't know. I mean, but to Adam's case, you know, for folks who are trying to make the ROI case, which a lot of people are focusing more on in 25, I don't know. I think I'm going to go crazy here and put this one essential. All righty. Next on, Coach.
Yep. The next one comes from Unilever, and it talks about how Unilever CMO says that AI is cutting product shoot costs by 50%.
All right, Ludo, what do you think? Goodbye, photographers.
Yeah, I'm not on mute this time. Yeah, I put it as important. It's a use case with some numbers, but no definition of what they've actually done. What it talks about is specific to the beauty business of Unilever. And they've announced that they put together the digital twins for every product that allows them to drop in various images and have them dynamic, essentially. In the earlier, I think it was February, Unilever released the discussion about the skincare and how they're using selfies and what it does to the user. So this is hyper personalization, and the users actually stay, and they had data to confirm that the users essentially only used Unilever products after they got this hyper personalized advice, right? So same here, the savings to put together this content for the products was quite dramatic. 55% savings, 65% faster turnaround, and that is in parallel with doubling the click-through and holding attention 3 times longer. So this is incredible results. So that's, I think it's a good case. So important.
All right, real numbers, big case. What do you think here? Important, essential? Paul, what do you?
I'm with Luda. 1,000% Luda.
All righty. Adam, Tim?
I was leaning a little towards optional. I thought this was one of the more lightweight use cases. It does cite that they gained 50% improvement in time, I believe, right? But it was all very high level and didn't talk about exactly what they did. Didn't give any numbers, just gave these percentages, didn't say how widely it was being applied. So lots of missing data. It's okay. I won't argue, but I would probably not pass this one on. This would be a lower back pocket as opposed to an upper back pocket for me.
Yeah, I don't know, Tim. I mean, we could not believe them, but they said 55% cost savings, so presumably labor, you know, total cost, and 65% turnaround time.
Yeah, that's why I'm not arguing.
Dwell time, but those are real. I don't know the data that is missing, is what I'm saying. I mean, you could have more detail technically.
They technically didn't explain what they did, but
yeah, well, you know, this is. I'll tell you why it matters. If they're doing it for like 2 websites that constitute 0.03% of their data, and they improved it by 55%, it's irrelevant, right? So I'm not saying they did that, and I don't think they did, but there's a lot of, and also, by the way, they're measuring dwell time. They didn't compare it to what the dwell time was before. Yes, they have brand loyalty. Maybe they had brand loyalty before. Is it making any difference, right? That's what matters in business.
Yeah, I'm referring. So, Tim, I actually went back and looked at this other article that compared the click rate with what it was before.
Right. I remember that one. Yeah.
There were more comparisons in there. So, having those two together gives you a little bit bigger picture.
Yeah, and I won't argue with important. They're a big company. I don't think they're making all this stuff up. It's just, you could poke holes in it if you wanted to.
All
But
righty.
you know, the idea here is digital twins. So when you have the content created semi-automatically and you have the product
Yep.
in parallel, that's a big improvement in general. I don't know how many companies are doing that, and that is an example that you can improve the content generation speed and accuracy and whatnot, and real-time insertion big time if you're doing that. So that's kind of why I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
I
right.
wouldn't argue with that.
Adam, we're headed for important. That's what you had in the pregame.
Yeah,
Feel good?
I think the punchline here really, which is the whole other side to the story, is that they're using NVIDIA Omniverse,
That's
right?
true too.
And that many companies should be thinking about, what could I do with the NVIDIA Omniverse? What if I can take my products, my assets, and I can basically make a digital twin of them, right? This is a use case, and it's specific to a beauty brand and products, but when people look at NVIDIA and where their positioning is helping the market, this is a major bellwether. Some of it does seem unbelievable, Tim. The Thailand team that reduced their cost by 87%, made the content twice as fast as, I mean, it's some staggering numbers, and they don't say how, but they also do say they use 500 AI applications across the business. It almost seems too good to be true, Tim, which had me leaning towards optional.
Yeah.
But I think it's an important enough overall piece of news with all of these major brands in it that are getting recognized through the.
Yep.
You know.
And the digital twin point is a good one by both you and Luda. That's a big deal. It's amazing to me that more companies haven't been interested in that, because simulation is the revolution really that computers brought on just about everywhere. And the ability to simulate more finer, what John you call it computability, right? The ability to make more of your business computable is just very powerful.
Yep.
All righty. Important is next, Ankaj.
Okay, the next one comes from Microsoft, and it talks about how contract intelligence leader iCertis harnesses GenAI to transform enterprise contracting.
All right. As somebody who used to run marketing, I could see the handwriting on this. Somebody got a task to go with a client, get a client use story, talk about our partnership. Here we are, one step away from a product announcement. What do you think here, Adam?
You're spot on, John. After I read it, I was left kind of scratching my head, so I actually went to GPT-4o, and I just said, does this actually go into the details of how they've done it? Because I was like, I just read the whole thing, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm not sure it actually said anything other than, well, they did it. And so GPT's answer, and this is when I tell you it's a new model, it said just short answer, no, it doesn't go into meaningful technical detail about how they're using generative AI. Then there's a line across the page and it says deeper analysis, what it does tell you. And it's like, yeah, but it didn't actually really tell us how they did it. It felt more like a product announcement, exactly as you're saying. And they did some amazing things, but they're the things we'd expect from an LLM, like summarizing contracts and monitoring deliverables. And it was a good use case, but it was probably optional for me.
All right, we'll get an optional going.
Yeah, I didn't even think it was a good use case, honestly. Because so many people are using it for contracts already, and they didn't have a single. The data they cited was it might save somebody this much money if they did X. So there was no real data here at all, and very all Western storefront we used to call this, right? It's just all superficial. There's nothing here. I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, I agree on optional, but they were talking about contract management and the sheer volume in some of those companies of like 10,000. I managed procurement group at GE, right? And so when you have this mass of contracts and that some of those clauses are not being followed. So if you enforce them, you can gain a lot of money, but you just don't know.
Yeah, so, I agree. Contract enforcement is a big deal, but there's lots of companies that do that.
Okay.
In fact, John, didn't you tell us that Blue Cross Blue Shield put a big effort into this because they have so many contracts with their vendors? And so, yeah, this is a big topic and one where Gen AI can be a big help. This one just doesn't say anything beyond that.
I agree. I agree with optional. I agree about the article. I'm just saying that this is a big case for figuring out
absolutely
impact. Yeah.
Yeah, the folks at Quantum Gears did work with Blue Cross Blue Shield to come up with a solution that they actually are selling out in the marketplace. All right, we have optional here. Next, Ankash.
Okay, the next one that we have for today is a research paper which talks about current and future use of large language models for knowledge work.
All right, we have here communications to the ACM, something I used to read quite frequently. I don't know, Tim. I'm not going to prejudice you and tell you I think this is a optional article in the sense that it's just a rehash of stuff we already know. What's your opinion?
I think this is an optional article because it's a rehash of stuff we already know. And its methods are okay, but I would call them okay. This is a C+ paper. They're doing it at IBM. They're talking to IBMers. It's not a terrible thing to do, and it's good validations like we were talking about with Anthropic, except Anthropic has way more detail and way more data. And this data is not available. So it's okay and useful to a certain extent because again, it tells us usage is, approximately doubling in very rapid pace. It tells us that people are using it all the time in lots of different ways. And it gets some good qualitative insights into what people really want it to do. But I would call it optional. Yeah. I mean, asking people what they want something to do, you're always going to get the incremental answer because nobody can. If you ask people what the internet was good for, there were very few people who said Facebook.
Yep.
At the beginning. They
All
said,
right.
oh, it's a good newspaper because
Right.
that's what we knew.
Yep. So the Luda, what'd you think here?
Yeah, I was optional. It was somewhat difficult to even read. Yeah, so optional. Nothing really new, and small bases. 200, 100. Yeah, small base.
Yeah, certainly something that the robots could have done a better job. Adam.
Yeah, no comment, man. Come on, let's just move on.
John, are you there?
All right, just took me a while to get back. Ankash, we're doing this optional. Next, please.
Okay, the next one comes from Epoch AI, and they talk about why benchmarks haven't reflected economic impacts.
Oh my goodness. Okay, Luda, what'd you think?
Yeah, optional for me. So it's an obvious point, I think, that the benchmarks were designed for the models that were tested, and that's why they're trying not to be too hard, not to be too easy, somewhere a little bit a little bit above being hard. So normally they are not predictive. For them to be predictive of the future uses and the like, they have to be different benchmarks. And yeah, so this is in my mind an obvious type of conclusion. So I gave it an optional. I didn't find anything new here.
Yeah, as a part-time academic, ex full-time academic, I hate articles like this. It gives the academy a bad name because this is not only obvious, it's nonsensical in the sense that the opposite of what they say is completely ridiculous. So that means that there's no content, right? Hey, the world's really complicated, and a measure, it's going to be really expensive to, do lots of things that are going to measure the world. Well, the real issue is, can you ever have a causal model of the future? And a lot of people would argue no. Anyway, it's just, it cuts into the problem at a trivial level. It makes trivial points, and it does it with a lot of words. Other than that, it's great.
It does point out the fact that we don't have really good benchmark, or somebody in response to this article called them stretch mark, meaning where we think LLMs should be and testing them against that. We just don't have them. So maybe that's an opportunity.
Well,
Yeah.
the question is whether you can have them, right? This is
Exactly.
again, we're into the area where these machines are learning, whatever we want to call that. And testing learning has always been a bugaboo. This is why education often falls apart, in my opinion, because they teach to the test, because people want some indication of results. So, but you still can't answer. Here's a simple question: who's a good writer? It's a very difficult question to answer. People still argue whether, James Joyce and Ernest Hemingway and Kurt Vonnegut are good writers, right? And they will argue till the ends of the earth about it. But in general, people can tell the difference between really terrible writing and really okay writing. But it's very challenging. It's very challenging when you get into these areas. And so we resort to, what is it? The thing about the drunkard and the lamppost. He says, why are you looking under the lamppost if you dropped your keys over there? He says, well, this is where the light is, right? So that's what we do. We say, well, we can test against this, so we'll test it. It may have absolutely nothing to do with the capability of the model, but we're going to test over here because we can do that. Okay.
Adam?
Yeah, option.
Yeah. No, I think this whole thing about what it is we're measuring. So, and to not go too much deeper into what you just said, but even kind of what the facts are, what truth is. I mean, once you get past intersubjectively verifiable kinds of knowledge,
Yeah.
sure. Like, what's a good writer? Who knows? What's a good painting? Who knows? Right?
Yeah.
It's all a matter of convention.
Yeah, I used to give lectures literally 40 years ago when we first started introducing object-oriented programming. And I said, look, here's a real problem with semantics, okay? I live in Boston, which is cold. My mother lived in Florida, which is warm. And so we argued about the facts. She says, oh, it's 65 degrees. I'm freezing. I said, boy, I wish it was 65 degrees. I'd be running around in my shorts. So we have exactly the same facts and nobody's even arguing about them. But the interpretation was almost polar opposite.
Yep. All right, Akash, optional. If you give us the tote board. And then tonight we have Alden, who's going to be, I believe, talking. You remember what Alden's
Manos. Manos.
Manus AI.
Manus. Yeah, Manus. Yeah.
That's great. And then,
yeah, that'll be very exciting. Yeah.
Yep. And I'm going to be doing a 5 minutes on this new article from P&G with Ethan Mollock and Karim Lakhani and so forth that talks about the impact of the use of models on knowledge work.
And there was a good article that I hope we get on this week from Ethan just yesterday on these new image models and how much better they are.
Yep, we will review. All right, so we have one essential here in terms of Anthropic. Oh, if you come back, Ankash. We lose Ankash? Here we go.
Yeah, coming back up.
All right. So we have one essential here. I think we had what? One important and the rest optional. All right. Unilever CMO is a good example. Anthropic Economic Index, given the essential not just for the implications as laid out in the article, but also access to a fantastic trove of data. All right, there we have it. Luda, Ankash, Adam, Tim, anything to announce, address other than our learning lab tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern time, U.S. All right, that's it. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. See you on Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.